Hi, my name is Andy Minoski. I'm a product manager here at CoreWeave. Alongside my colleague Diok, we're excited to share with you two of the newest capabilities of the CoreWeave Cloud Platform, automated user provisioning, or AUP, and SUNK user provisioning, also known as SUP. Together, these features enable you to fully sync users and groups from your existing enterprise identity provider, or IDP, into CoreWeave IAM and thereafter into SUNK, our implementation of Slurm deployed on Kubernetes through Helm. These features enable you to extend your existing identity and security boundary to CoreWeave, utilizing your existing identity and access management infrastructure to enforce least privilege and entitle workflows across CoreWeave products and services. So to start, let's take a look at AUP. Automated user provisioning allows us to be able to use existing identity providers like SUNK or Microsoft Entra to sync with CoreWeave IAM, enabling you to use the existing users and groups you have already deployed within that identity infrastructure, as well as use your existing identity management workflows when entitling fine-grained access to CoreWeave products and services. AUP does this through the SCIM protocol, leveraging your existing IDP as a SCIM provider and syncing users and groups downstream with any changes you've made or other creation mechanisms you've had within CoreWeave IAM. With AUP, I can fully manage many identity-related operations for users and groups in my IDP and have those changes be reflected automatically within CoreWeave. So let's take a look at one example. I'd like to have my AI engineer, Clark Kent, be able to gain access to SUNK automatically when developing a model training workflow. So to do this, I'll need to give him a public key, private key pair such that he can authenticate himself automatically within SUNK. I have that public key, private key pair generated. And so I'll go into Okta itself and actually deploy that key into a custom user attribute setting that I created for him. Now I've already set up both SAML and SCIM to work via AUP with Okta and with my downstream CoreWeave cloud platform organization, such that when I want to be able to have Clark be able to log in and authenticate this, all this is automatically reflected within CoreWeave without having to have me go change any manual configuration settings, et cetera. In fact, when I go to his user profile and see this change that I've made, I can actually see the public key that I just entered in here. Now Clark has the data configured for him. We can use it directly to configure him automatically as a user to log in to SUNK. For that, I'll hand off to my colleague Diak.
Thanks, Andy. So now that we've seen how you can set up your user's information and group membership information in an identity provider upstream and automated user provisioning, we'll take that info and provision it within CoreWeave IAM. You should also know that there's a way to do so manually. If you don't have an identity provider, you can simply set those users and groups up directly into CoreWeave IAM. Step 2 of this end-to-end flow is SUNK user provisioning. Whether you go with the federated route or not, SUNK user provisioning will take the user and group information in CoreWeave IAM and provision it as POSIX and Slurm users and groups in your cluster. Specifically, Slurm needs users and accounts. So I'm going to go through the steps, which are covered in our documentation, of how to set up SUNK user provisioning. Step number 1 is to create a secret with the SCIM token that's required. SCIM is the protocol used, and so we're going to create that token. First, enabling SUNK user provisioning, then quickly creating a token. I copy that, I encode it as base 64, and then when I do that, I will create my Kubernetes secret. All I need to do is apply the secret now, and once it's created, I'll use it in the process of configuring my SUNK configurations. So I have my secret up. It's called SCIM auth token. All I have to do now is to update my SUNK deployment to use the configuration for NSS cache, which is what implements the connection to SCIM token, make sure that users are provisioned within the cluster. When doing this specification, I need to provide groups. These groups specify which users will be provisioned into the cluster. As I can see through the UI, I have 2 groups, Slurm users and Slurm sudo. I specified those in my SUNK configs, and I applied them, much like I do for any other SUNK configuration change. Once that is applied, I can now SSH in directly because that information was automatically provisioned in the cluster in under a minute. So the way I can show that is SSHing into the login node for this cluster. with the SSH key that was originally defined in Okta. Now, I'd like to show how the POSIX users is provisioned in the cluster and how the Slurm user is also provisioned in the cluster. And I can do that with a couple of commands. So with the Slurm saccount manager command, I can show how this user exists as a Slurm user. And just by showing the contents of what NSS cache keeps for each user, the password cache file, I could also show how Clark Kent is now a POSIX user in this cluster. The golden test is if I can run a Slurm command that does something in the worker nodes, then it means I have provisioned access correctly. And I can do that by simply running a srun command. So this srun command will show the GPUs I have in a particular node of my cluster, closing the loop from upstream federated provisioning into CoreWeave IAM, and then provisioning of users and groups into the Slurm cluster. Thank you.